The silent warning. In the vast expanse of space, a powerful empire called the Zorth Dominion ruled over countless worlds. Their fleets soared through the stars, conquering planets, enslaving civilizations, and adding new worlds to their growing list of conquests. They were feared across the galaxy, known for their advanced technology and unmatched military might. To them, no planet was too small, no species too insignificant to fall under their control. But there was one world they had overlooked, a small blue planet tucked away in the corner of a seemingly quiet galaxy. This planet was called Earth. The Zorth Dominion had first detected Earth's existence hundreds of years ago, but their scouts had quickly dismissed it as irrelevant. The humans they thought were primitive creatures with no ability to challenge their empire. They were not even on the radar of the Dominion leaders, who could possibly care about a planet like Earth. Yet as the Zorth Dominion continued to conquer world after world, a troubling message began to surface in their data archives. It was an ancient warning. Encrypted in a language no one could understand, it came from a forgotten civilization, a race that had once roamed the stars before the Zorth Empire had risen to power. The message, though garbled and fragmented, carried one undeniable truth. Beware of the small blue planet Earth. For many years, this message remained a mystery, hidden in the deepest corners of the Dominion's archives. It was simply too strange, too cryptic, and too out of place. The Zorth leadership ignored it, shocking it up to the ravings of an old dead race. Who would take such a warning seriously? That was until one fateful day when the message reservist, Zor's chief scientist, Kellen, had been assigned to investigate the Dominion's recent failures. Several military campaigns had ended in disaster, and no one could explain why. There were no reports of alien interference, no new technologies discovered by their enemies. Yet something was wrong. The Empire was losing ground. Kellen's curiosity led her to the forgotten warning. She had been tasked with decoding old transmissions and stumbled upon the strange message buried deep in the archives. The more she studied it, the more she began to feel a sense of unease. There was something about the message that didn't sit right with her. It felt like a warning, not from some lost civilization, but from something alive. The message is clear. Kellen reported to the Zorth High Council. It speaks of Earth. It is a world we ignored, but now it is impossible to ignore. The Council, led by the Emperor himself, scoffed at her findings. What can this Earth possibly pose as a threat? Emperor Varric asked, laughing. It is a backwater planet with no advanced technology. We have conquered worlds far more powerful. This is nothing. But Dr. Kellen refused to back down. I have studied this planet, she insisted. It may seem insignificant, but there is something different about Earth. It is not as weak as we think. Despite her warnings, the Council refused to take any action. The Zorth Dominion had always prided itself on its strength. They had crushed countless civilizations that once thought they could stand against them. Earth, like the others, would fall, no question about it. Yet as they continued to dismiss the warning, a strange series of events began to unfold. Ships that had been sent to explore distant galaxies started reporting unexpected anomalies. They couldn't explain it. Systems not functioned, communications were lost, and entire fleets went missing. It wasn't long before these strange occurrences were traced back to one place, Earth. The Zorth Dominion had sent no fleets to Earth, yet their enemies seemed to know their every move. Unsettling reports began to flood in from the edges of the Empire. Mysterious ships, unlike any the Zorth had ever seen, appeared in space, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. These unknown attackers came from Earth. Still, the High Council remained skeptical. They believed these incidents were mere coincidences, the result of unexplainable anomalies, not signs of an uprising. But Dr. Kellen knew better. She began to dive deeper into the data, studying Earth's history, its people, and their incredible ability to survive against all odds. The more she learned, the more she realized that this planet, once written off as insignificant, was hiding something far greater. On the Zorth Dominion's home world, Emperor Varric sat in his grand palace, staring out at the stars. His empire stretched across the galaxy, and it's something noted him, a feeling he couldn't shake. Perhaps it was just the growing unrest within his own people, or perhaps there was some truth to the warning. He shook his head, dismissing it as paranoid. We are the Zorth Dominion. He muttered to himself, "No planet, no species can challenge us." But even as he spoke those words, a small, seemingly insignificant ship, a human vessel, drifted silently through the galaxy, heading straight for the heart of the Empire. And deep within the Empire's archives, Dr. Kellen made a final chilling discovery. Earth was not the only world to have been overlooked. The Empire's greatest enemies had been watching them all along, waiting as the Zorth Dominion continued to ignore the silent warning. They unknowingly set in motion their own downfall, and soon they would realize Earth had been waiting to the first contact. The Zorth Dominion had no idea that their complacency would soon be shattered. Earth, a planet they had long dismissed as inconsequential, was now stirring. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible movement, at first a ripple in the vast sea of space, but it would soon grow into a wave that could not be ignored. Dr. Kellen was the first to truly understand what was happening. For weeks she had pored over Earth's transmissions, analyzing the strange messages that had been sent out, often without any apparent reason. They weren't military signals, nor were they scientific reports. They were simply humans reaching out, trying to make contact with some beyond their world. And somehow the Dominion's own technology had picked up these signals. It wasn't long before the Dominion sensors detected an anomaly. A small, unassuming spacecraft was approaching their borders. At first, it seemed like just another trivial discovery, the lone ship perhaps lost or on a research mission. But then the unthinkable happened. The ship hailed the Dominion fleet. "This is Earth." The transmission came through clear and firm. The voice was calm, composed, but there was an undeniable weight in it. "We have been watching you, and we are ready." The Zorth fleet commanders were thrown into a frenzy. How had a planet they had considered a backwater even discovered them? Worse, how could a species so primitive even be aware of their existence? "It's impossible," General Vero muttered, his face drawn tight with disbelief. Earth wasn't supposed to know about us, yet the truth was undeniable. Earth had made first contact. The Zorth Dominion, the rulers of 1,000 worlds, suddenly found themselves on the defensive. They had never expected this. They had thought of Earth as a simple planet, perhaps with some primitive forms of life, but nothing more. Now the humans were speaking directly to them, and the whole galaxy was listening. The Dominion quickly scrambled to decode the human signals, but it was clear the humans knew far more than they should. Earth was no longer just a forgotten planet in the corner of the galaxy. It had awakened, and it was ready to confront the Zorth Dominion head-on. Emperor Varric called an emergency meeting with his council, his expression dark. "This is no coincidence," he said, pacing in the grand hall. "Earth has somehow prepared itself. This ship, this contact, it is no mistake. They have been watching us." Dr. Kellen stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We can't ignore this. I have studied their history. The humans are resourceful. If they have made it this far, they have capabilities we are not aware of. We underestimated them." The Emperor glared at her. "Do you want me to believe that a species we've dismissed as nothing but insects can now challenge us?" His voice was laced with disdain. "I will not allow this trivial message to distract us from our goals." But even as he spoke, a second transmission came in. The humans were not making threats, but they were not afraid either. The message was simple yet direct. "We are not here to negotiate." The human voice echoed through the transmission. "We are here to make a stand. The days of your empire's conquest are over. Prepare yourselves." At that moment, the Zorth Dominion realized they had made a grave mistake. The humans were not just a curious species, they were fighters, and Earth was no longer the weak, unnoticed planet they had assumed it was. Across the Dominion, reports began flooding in about strange, unexplained disruptions in the Empire systems. Communications were being jammed, ships were disappearing without a trace, fleets that had been sent out on routine missions were returning but damaged, their crews disoriented and fearful. The Zorth had never seen anything like this before. In their arrogance, they had underestimated the resilience of Earth. They had failed to understand what lay beneath the surface of humanity's humble beginnings. And now they were paying the price. On Earth, humanity was rallying for the first time. The world's nations were united in a single cause. No longer were they divided by borders or politics. They had one enemy, and that enemy was the Zorth Dominion. In underground bunkers, scientists were working day and night to reverse engineer alien technology. They had stumbled upon engineers were building new weapons, far beyond anything Earth had ever dreamed of. The first wave of human spacecraft, crude but effective, had already launched toward the stars. The first contact had been made, and Earth's message was clear. They would not stand down, they would not be conquered. The Zorth Dem had ignored them for too long, but now they would learn the true meaning of Earth's strength. The first chapter of a new war had begun, and the Zorth were about to find out just how wrong they were to dismiss Earth as a minor threat. But as the human ships made their way into the vastness of space, a sense of doubt began to creep into the minds of the Zorth leaders. Could they truly defeat a planet that had no reason to fear them? Could they crush the will of a species that had just discovered the power within itself? The Zorth Empire was vast, their armies unmatched, their technology superior, but Earth's heart was something that no weapon could destroy, and the Dominion was about to find that out the hard way. Earth's hidden power. The Zorth Dominion had underestimated Earth, and now they were beginning to feel the consequences. The transmission from Earth's L-ship had ignited a sense of urgency within the Dominion. The Empire's generals, once confident in their supremacy, began to question everything. For centuries, they had crushed entire civilizations, their power unquestioned. Yet now a small blue planet thought to be insignificant had sent a warning that was impossible to ignore. Earth wasn't just making contact, it was preparing for something on Earth. The news spread like wildfire the moment the first transmission was received. Every nation on the planet had understood the gravity of the situation. Earth was not just defending itself, it was uniting in an unprecedented move. The world's governments put aside their differences and joined forces. They knew that their survival depended on it. Humanity had always prided itself on its adaptability and its relentless will to survive. Now they were about to prove it to the entire galaxy. The first few days after the transmission were filled with chaos and disbelief. Scientists, military leaders, and civilians worked around the clock to prepare for the inevitable conflict. Most nations had their own space programs, but none were prepared for an invasion of this scale. They were used to looking to the stars, dreaming of distant worlds, not defending against one that had already conquered countless others. But humanity had something the Zorth Dominion had not accounted for: a burning desire to protect their home, to fight for survival at any cost. This primal drive would become their greatest weapon. As the days passed, humanity's response became clearer. They weren't just relying on their military forces. The true power of Earth lay in its ability to innovate, to think outside the box, and to use whatever resources they had at their disposal. Earth's scientists began to reverse engineer the technology they had salvaged from alien ships that had crashed or been captured in previous encounters. The goal wasn't just defense, it was to turn the tables on the Zorth Dominion. Darkellen, who had been one of the few to recognize the hidden strength of Earth, was now facing the disturbing reality. The humans were learning far faster than she had anticipated. They were taking alien technology and improving it in ways she hadn't thought possible. The once primitive species were now building weapons that could challenge the Zorth finest. "You were right," a Zorth general said to Darkellen as she reviewed the data. "We have miscalculated Earth. They aren't just trying to defend themselves, they're actively preparing to fight back. And they're succeeding faster than we ever imagined." Darkellen had no choice but to admit that the humans were formidable. Their ingenuity was their secret weapon, and it was proving to be far more dangerous than any fleet the Zorth Dominion had ever sent to conquer another world. On Earth, a global coalition formed, the United Earth Defense Council, EDC, tasked with leading the charge against the Zorth invasion. The first human-made spacecraft, a massive vessel known as the Horizon, was fitted with experimental weapons based on the stolen alien tech. It wasn't just a military ship, it was a symbol of humanity's resilience. The Horizon would be Earth's first line of defense. But it wasn't just technology that made Earth's forces unique, it was their ability to adapt. Where the Zorth relied on strength and overwhelming numbers, Earth's forces learned to outsmart and outmaneuver. They had no vast fleets, no armies that could overwhelm the Zorth, but they had the human spirit, and that was something that no empire had ever been able to predict. General Darnell, one of the ETS leaders, sat in the command center of the horizon, watching as the first wave of human spacecraft prepared for battle. He could feel the weight of the moment. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. "This is it," he muttered to his crew. "We've been preparing for this day. But there's no turning back now. We fight for Earth, for our families, for our future. We show them what humanity is capable of across the world." Similar scenes were unfolding. Nations that had once been rivals were now united in a common cause. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its technology or its will to survive, it was its unity. For the first time in history, the people of Earth were no longer divided. They stood as one. The Zorth Dominion had made the mistake of thinking that Earth was too weak to challenge them. Now, they were about to find out how wrong they were. The first wave of human ships, though smaller in number, had been specially designed to strike fast and hard. The humans had learned how to disable Zorth ships, targeting their weak points with precision. As the horizon and other ships entered the stars, they encountered their first taste of battle. The Zorth fleets, though large, were unprepared for the humans' guerrilla tactics. They expected Earth's forces to be disorganized, to retreat in fear, but instead they found themselves under attack, with human ships darting in and out of their firing range, striking at weak points, and using the environment of space to their advantage. For the first time, the Zorth Dominion began to realize that they were facing an enemy unlike any other. Humans weren't just surviving, they were fighting back with everything they had, and in doing so, they were revealing the hidden power of Earth, a power born not from advanced technology, but from a relentless desire to protect what was theirs. The Dominion's military commanders began to question the thinkable. Could they lose this war? Could a species they had written off as primitive defeat them? As Earth's forces pressed forward, the Zorth were forced to reevaluate their entire strategy. What they had once seen as a minor inconvenience had now become a deadly force, one that could very well bring down the mighty empire. And all the while, Earth's people stood united, driven by a simple truth: they would not be conquered. The turning point, the war between Earth and the Zorth Dominion, had escalated quickly. What the Dominion had hoped would be a swift and easy conquest had turned into a prolonged struggle. For the first time in centuries, the mighty empire was facing an enemy that wasn't afraid to fight back, an enemy whose resilience and adaptability were proving to be their greatest weapons. The Zorth, used to crushing their foes with overwhelming force, were struggling to keep up with humanity's unpredictable tactics. Earth's forces have been trained to survive against all odds, and now they were putting their skills to use against a far superior enemy. The first major victory for Earth came unexpectedly. The Horizon, the flagship of the United Earth Defense Council, had been engaged in a fierce battle with a Zorth battle cruiser. The Zorth ship was enormous, far more advanced in terms of weaponry and armor, but the crew of the Horizon had learned quickly, adding alien technology in ways that even the Zorth had not anticipated. Commander Elena Hawk stood at the helm of the Horizon, her eyes focused on the holographic map. Before her, the Zorth battle cruiser loomed large on the view screen, its weapons firing sporadically. The Horizon had already taken damage, but the crew was holding strong. They had one chance to win this battle, one moment to turn the tide. "Target the power core," she ordered, her voice calm but firm. "Will disable their shields." Her team had studied Zorth ships meticulously, and they knew that the key to victory lay in targeting their weak points, specifically the power core, which was poorly protected. It was risky, but it was their only chance. The Horizon darted toward the Zorth cruiser, using the debris field nearby to obscure their approach. The Zorth were confused, firing blindly at the surrounding asteroids into bridge, not realizing the humans were closing in. Commander Hawk's hands gripped the controls tightly. "Now," she shouted. The crew fired their weapons. A well-aimed strike hitting the core of the Zorth cruiser. There was a massive explosion, and the cruiser shields collapsed instantly. The Zorth ship, now vulnerable, was defenseless against the follow-up strike. Earth's forces wasted no time, launching a barrage of missiles that tore through the alien ship's hull. The Zorth cruiser was destroyed in a fiery explosion across the galaxy. The news of Earth's first major victory spread like wildfire. For the first time, the Zorth Dominion realized they were not invincible. They were facing an enemy that was learning, adapting, and exploiting their weaknesses faster than they could respond. Earth had just struck a decisive blow, and it sent shockwaves through the Dominion's leadership. In the war room of board, the Zorth flagship Emperor Varric paced angrily. His generals stood before him, their faces tense, unsure of how to respond. "Explain to me how this happened," Varric demanded. "How could they defeat one of our greatest ships with such a small force?" Kellen stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with concern. "They've learned to exploit our weaknesses. The humans are not like the others we have conquered. They are resourceful and determined. Their victory was not by accident. It was a calculated strike." Varric clenched his fists. "No matter, we still have the upper hand. Their forces are scattered, their technology primitive compared to ours." But even as he spoke those words, doubt began to creep into his mind. The Zorth Dominion had always relied on their overwhelming strength, but now they were facing a force that refused to back down. Earth had shown that it could hit back, and hit hard. As Earth's forces celebrated their victory, they were not resting on their laurels. They knew that this was just the beginning, that the Zorth would not go down without a fight. The victory at the battle cruiser had been a turning point, but it was far from the end. On Earth, the people were united in a way they had never been before. Governments that had once been divided now worked together seamlessly. Their combined resources allowed humanity to continue advancing in ways that the Zorth had never anticipated. New ships were being built, new weapons developed, and new strategies put into place. Earth was no longer just defending itself. It was actively pushing back. The Zorth, on the other hand, were scrambling. Their fleets had been thrown off balance by the loss of the battle cruiser, and their confidence was beginning to falter. They had never fought a war like this before. They had never encountered an enemy that could learn and adapt so quickly. The Zorth had always relied on brute force, but they were now realizing that this was a war of attrition, one that they might not be able to win. As the war continued to unfold, the Dominion's leadership was forced to reconsider their strategy. Emperor Varric, once so certain of his empire's superiority, now found himself facing the unthinkable, the possibility of defeat. The tide had begun to turn in Earth's favor. The Zorth Dominion had underestimated Earth's resolve, and now they were paying the price. The people of Earth were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future, and they would not be stopped. The wrath unleashed as the war between Earth and the Zorth Dominion dragged on. The stakes grew higher. Humanity's resilience had taken the Zorth by surprise, but now it was time for Earth to show them just what it could do. The battles that had once been fought on the defensive were now shifting toward a bold offensive. Earth was no longer just trying to survive, it was taking the fight to the Dominion's doorstep. The turning point had come in the form of a new weapon, the Titan Project. It was humanity's answer to the Zor's superior firepower, a massive, heavily armored warship. The Titan was the result of months of research and development, combining Earth's most advanced technology with the stolen alien tech that had been reverse engineered. It was designed not just to fight, but to deliver the kind of blow that would force the Zorth to think twice about their plans. General Darnell stood in the command center of the Titan, watching the preparations unfold. His face was grim. This wasn't just another skirmish, it was the beginning of Earth's retaliation. The Titan was Earth's first true weapon of mass destruction, and it was about to strike a critical blow against the Zorth Dominion. "We've trained for this moment," General Darnell said, his voice steady as he addressed his crew. "The Titan is ready, and it's time to show the Zorth that we won't be intimidated any longer. We are going to strike them where it hurts." The target was clear. The Zorth had a central hub, a massive fortress station deep in their territory. It was the heart of their empire, a place that controlled much of their military strategy and resource forces. Destroying it with their ability to continue the war, the Titan roared to life as it left Earth's atmosphere, its engines blazing with power. The crew felt the weight of the mission on their shoulders, but they knew they had no choice. This was Earth's chance to turn the tide of the war in their favor. As the Titan traveled deeper into Zorth space, its massive size and firepower made it a target. Zorth ships began to close in attempting to intercept the human ship before it reached the heart of the Empire, but the humans were prepared. The Titan unleashed its weapons, an array of devastating missiles and energy beams that tore through the Zorth ships with terrifying precision. The battle was fierce, and the Zorth forces were relentless, but Earth's crew fought with everything they had. Each strike, each counterattack, was a testament to the human spirit. The Zorth ship were powerful, but they were not as nimble or resourceful as Earth's forces. The Dominion's fleet began to break apart, their ships falling one by one as the Titan tore through their ranks. As they neared the fortress station, the Zorth launched their final defense, an enormous fleet of warships, the likes of which the humans had never seen before. It was a last-ditch effort to stop the humans from reaching their target. The air was thick with tension as the Titan fac. Wave after wave of alien ships. "Hold steady," General Darnell shouted, his grip tight on the controls. "This is it. We break through, or we don't come back." The Titan unleashed its final barrage, firing everything in its arsenal: energy beams RIT through the enemy ships, while missiles crashed into their hulls. The Dominion's fleet was faltering, but it was clear they would not give up easily. Their desperation was palpable, but the humans were relentless. And then, in a moment that would be remembered forever, the Titan reached the Zorth fortress station. The humans launched their final strike, an explosive charge that penetrated the station's defenses, setting off a chain reaction that ripped the station apart from the inside out. The explosion was massive, shaking the very fabric of space. The Zorth had lost their central hub, their most powerful stronghold. It was a blow from which they might never recover. Back on Earth, the world watched as the news spread. The Dominion's fortress had been destroyed. Earth had struck a decisive blow, and the war was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a battle for victory. Humanity had proven that it could stand toe-to-toe with the mightiest empire in the galaxy. But as Earth celebrated its triumph, the Zorth were not defeated. They were angry. The loss of their fortress was a blow to their pride, and they would not go down quietly. The destruction of the hub would force them to reassess their strategy, but they still had the power to retaliate. The Titan had unleashed Earth's wrath, and now the Zorth would feel the full force of humanity's anger. As General Darnell stood before the Titan's crew, his eyes burned with determination. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We've taken a major step, but we've only just begun to show them what Earth is capable of. They thought they could ignore us. Now they will regret it." The Titan slowly turned its mission complete. The Zorth had underestimated Earth's ability to fight back, and now they were facing the consequences. The war was far from over, but the Dominion had just learned that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Earth's wrath had been unleashed, and the Zorth Dominion would never be the same. Desperation. The destruction of the Zorth fortress station sent shockwaves through the entire Dominion. It was not just a military defeat, it was a symbol of their failure to subjugate Earth for centuries. The Zorth had been at the top of the food chain, conquering planet after planet, but now they were facing an enemy that could fight back, that could learn and adapt. Earth's bold strike had shaken their empire to its core. Emperor Varric was furious. His empire, once unstoppable, was now on the verge of collapse. Earth had revealed the cracks in their armor, and those cracks were widening by the day. The Zorth were no longer just fighting against another planet, they were fighting for their survival. Their pride had been shattered, and now desperation set in. "I will not be humiliated by this insignificant planet," Emperor Varric roared as he stormed through the halls of his command ship. The Zorth leadership had always believed that fear and power would keep them in control of the galaxy, but now they were beginning to realize they were facing a force far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The determination of a species fighting for its home. The Dominion's high command was in disarray. They had suffered heavy losses, and their remaining fleets were in disarray. The Titan's attack had crippled their central command, and the momentum was now with Earth. Yet even in the face of this, the Zorth were not ready to give up. They had one last hope, a weapon so devastating that it could turn the tide of the war in their favor. "We cannot afford to lose another ship," General Varro, a veteran of the Dominion's fleet, said grimly. "If we fail now, we will lose everything. The humans have pushed us to the brink. But I have a solution, a weapon that will bring Earth to its knees, he stood before Emperor Varric, a grim look on his face. The weapon he spoke of was known as the Vortex Cannon, a massive energy weapon. Capable of destroying entire planets, it had been in development for years, but had never been used due to its immense power and instability. The Zorth had hoped they would never need it, but now faced with the threat of annihilation, they had no other choice. The Vortex Cannon is still in the testing phase, but it could be the weapon that finally breaks the humans. General Veros said it can target entire planets, wiping them out in an instant. If we launch it at Earth, we will end this war. Emperor Varric's eyes narrowed as he considered the idea. And what of the risks? We know the cannon has never been fully tested. It could destroy us as well. General Veros' expression darkened. It's a gamble, but it's the only option we have left. The humans have become a threat we can no longer ignore. Despite the risk, Varric knew he had no choice. If the Zorth were to survive, they had to win, and the Vortex Cannon was their only chance. He gave the order to prepare the weapon for launch, knowing it could either end the war or destroy them all. Meanwhile, on Earth, the celebration of their victory was short-lived. The destruction of the Zorth Fortress Station had been a massive win, but humanity knew the Dominion was not finished. Earth's forces were on high alert, knowing that the Zorth would retaliate with everything they had. They had seen the power of the Zorth, and the Titan's success was not a guarantee of future victories. General Darnell and Commander Hawk were in the command center of the horizon, reviewing the latest intelligence. A sense of unease hung in the air. The Zorth were reeling from their loss, but Earth knew that their enemy was capable of anything. We can't let our guard down, General Darnell said, his voice grim. The Zorth are angry, and they will strike back harder than ever. We've crippled them, but they're far from done. They'll come at us with everything they've got. As if on cue, a warning siren blurred throughout the command center. The stars outside the window seemed to shimmer, a sign that something massive was approaching. Sir, we've detected a new fleet heading towards Earth, the technician called out, eyes wide with shock. It's huge, larger than anything we've seen before. General Darnell's face hardened. He knew what this meant. The Zorth had pulled out all the stops. This was their final strike. The new Zorth fleet arrived at the outer edges of Earth's defense perimeter. Unlike previous encounters, this fleet wasn't just composed of warships. It was a full-scale invasion force with the Vortex Cannon at its center. The weapon was so massive that it dwarfed every other ship in the fleet, and it was charging its energy core. This is it, Commander Hawk said quietly. They brought the Vortex Cannon. They planned to destroy Earth. General Darnell's mind raced. They had one chance to stop this, one opportunity to prevent the annihilation of their planet. He knew the Zorth fleet was too powerful to defeat head-on, especially with the Vortex Cannon looming overhead. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. We'll need to outmaneuver them. We can't win by force alone. We need to take out the Vortex Cannon before it's too late. Earth's remaining fleet of warships, though smaller in number, quickly assembled. The Titan, though still damaged, was ready to fight. The Horizon led the charge, its advanced technology giving Earth's forces the edge in speed and precision. The battle was fierce. Zorth ships lined up for a direct assault, their weapons firing relentlessly at Earth's ships. The Horizon and Titan weaved through the barrage, avoiding the Zor's fire and picking off their smaller ships. One by one, the human fleet was using every advantage it had, but it was clear that Earth couldn't hold out forever. The Vortex Cannon was getting closer to full power and time was running out. We need to strike now, General Darnell shouted. Focus everything on the Vortex Cannon. With a final desperate push, Earth's forces broke through the Zorth lines. The Titan launched a full-scale assault on the weapon, targeting its power core. With everything they had, explosions rang out as the Vortex Cannon fired one final blast, but it was too late. Earth's combined forces overwhelmed it, and the weapon exploded in a massive fireball. The Zorth fleet, left leaderless and crippled, began to retreat. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high.